I saw somebody that was about 20 feet away from me also starting to present a weapon towards me, and I was able to engage him, dropped him right there.
December 8th, 2012, Eastern Afghanistan. Under cover of darkness, Special Operations Forces advanced on a small building at the base of a mountain. Hours before, a civilian doctor on a humanitarian mission was kidnapped. Intelligence reporting he would soon be killed. Time of the essence, a rescue mission was ordered. Spotted as they approached, the Americans rushed the building. Chief Petty Officer Nicholas Check on point. Fellow operator Edward C. Byers following. Bursting through the entrance, Byers killed one terrorist, tackling another. Finding the doctor off to his right, he ran to shield him from fire, using a free hand to pin an enemy fighter against the wall until subdued. The rescue mission would see Master Chief Byers awarded the Medal of Honor. It would cost Petty Officer Nick Check his life. Receiving the medal, Byers noted, "My only desire is that my representation
is something my brothers who I served with would be proud of, because the deed is all, not the glory."
Theirs is a brotherhood that spans the decades, of the world's most acclaimed Special Operations Force, tracing its beginnings to a generation long ago. November 18th, 1942. Up Connecticut Avenue from the White House, Washington's Shoreham Hotel boasted one of the largest indoor pools in the capital. Doors closed and guards at the watch, a dentist-turned-Navy officer, Jack Taylor, slipped under the water. Taylor donned a newly invented breathing device, a precursor to scuba gear. Swimming lap after lap without the telltale sight of bubbles, the successful test in the hotel pool revolutionized undersea operations for generations to come. And decades later, it would lead to Jack Taylor's informal recognition as the first Navy SEAL. Landings across the Pacific theater of World War II led to creation of the first underwater demolition teams, tasked with clearing beaches of obstacles for invading soldiers and Marines. In Europe, naval demolition units were the first to hit the Normandy beaches. Under fire, they cleared the way for 150,000 soldiers, suffering a casualty rate of 52%. D-Day remains the bloodiest day in naval special warfare history. Jack Taylor himself undertook daring missions across the Mediterranean, captured, tortured, and held prisoner by the Gestapo. He survived the war and testified at the Nuremberg trials. The underwater demolition teams would serve once more in Korea. Then, in January 1962, pulled from the ranks of the UDTs, the U.S. Navy SEALs. In Vietnam, the SEAL teams earned their battlefield reputation. The mystique grew as SEAL teams saw action in Grenada, Panama, the Gulf War, and were called to service in Iraq and Afghanistan. After midnight, May 2nd, 2011, 2 Black Hawk helicopters sped through the dark, crossing into Pakistan. 10 years of searching had led to the location of Osama bin Laden. Gunfire erupted as the SEALs breached the compound. Inside, up the stairs in a back room to the right, with 2 shots, the decade-long search came to an end. The raid brought acclaim to the SEALs who launched it, and yet, as with their brothers from generations before, most of their names will never be known. Their motivation, only justice for the 3,000 men, women, and children who on September morning in 2001 only wished to go about their lives. Because the deed is all, not the glory.
And so our unit spun up on this target. We developed the intelligence picture as fast as possible. And on the night of December 8th, we launched out of our base and landed about 5 hours away and started patrolling into the target. Now, what we did differently, and it was again a nod back to our SEAL brethren in Vietnam and how they used to attack targets going through the Mekong Delta, the hardest way into the targets. We took on the same approach because the way our target building was positioned and where we thought the doctor was being held captive was in a compound that overlooked the entire valley. So there was no way to walk up the front, up the valley to the compound because despite it being at night and with even low lume, once your eyes adjust, you can see across the valley, plain as day, especially with as many people as we had and trying to move those type of forces. But this compound was to the back, it was butted up right to the back, the bottom of a mountainside. And so we came up the backside to that mountain and then had to walk down the face of that mountain. What we didn't know was, because there's only so much you can get from looking at and doing route reconnaissance, was how steep it actually was. And there was points where our team was turned around bouldering down the side of the mountain and using our ladders to get down from level to level to level. There was no clear path to do that. And so it really cut into our time. When we all finally got down to the bottom of the mountain and we got to our set point, we started to hear calls of prayer throughout the valley, and off in the very distance, started to see the sun started to peak up, first light. And so we knew we were right on the cusp. No more time to waste. It was at that moment that Nick Check, our point man, started to lead out our patrol and started moving towards the target building, our area of responsibility. Now, we were there with our entire troop, and the compound had many buildings and many places that needed to be hit simultaneously. So our team started to fan out and started taking their areas of responsibility. Our specific team, Echo Team, which was being led out by Nick Check, moved to our target building, and that we had assessed is where the Dr. Joseph was being held. And so as we started to get closer to the building, one of the Taliban guards had come out of the door with his rifle, and Nick Check immediately engaged him, and that started the catalyst of us rapidly accelerating our prosecution of the target. Nick took shots at him and began sprinting and moved in such a fashion that by the time I had a chance to react and started to maneuver to gain some space between us in case I had to also shoot, he was already 6 to 8 feet ahead of me. It was an instantaneous shots on target to forward progression to the door to prosecute this building. When we got to the building, which was only 20 to 30 feet away at this time, the door, we encountered something we had never encountered before on all of the prior years of doing combat operations. It was wool blankets that was multi-layered and cemented into the door frame on opposing sides. And so shots had already been fired, and in a hostage rescue mission, we had to move because if they woke up and decided to execute the American hostage, it is mission failure, and we did not do what it is we're designed to do as a military unit. And one of our first mission essential task lists is to do hostage rescue. And so a couple of us hopped on these blankets to try to rip them out of the door seam, and they were cemented in so well they couldn't do it. And it was, even after a couple seconds, we heard our voice from our troop chief who said, "Get the hell inside there. Let's go." We were talking about matters of seconds here. There wasn't a long delay in time, but seconds were hours in this environment right now. And so as Nick started to weave his way through, there was more gunshots. You can't really see what was happening because you were having to push away multi-layers of blankets, these heavy wool, blankets. And it's very difficult too because it's getting hung up on your gear, your guns, your night vision, all that stuff. I moved in right behind Nick, and I had stepped over something or someone moved into my area of responsibility, which was to the left. And as I came in and presented my weapon, I saw somebody that was about 20 feet away from me also starting to present a weapon towards me, and I was able to engage him and make some very clean shots in his head and dropped him right there. But it was a matter of just split seconds of him getting shots off on me versus the other way around. It was at that time that I noticed somebody scrambling across the floor that was moving towards those weapons, and by the time I was able to close with that person, I was able to lock them down on the ground, pinning them to the ground with my knees on their shoulders as I was adjusting my night vision to gain facial recognition. This entire time, this person is trying to reach for these weapons and grab something. And while I didn't know if this was one of the hostages that was scared and was trying to move, because there was no voices at this time, nothing was being called out. And it was roughly in that instance that we began to call out for Dr. Joseph, like somebody, is he in this room? Will he say it? And there was no response. And this is all happening in just matters of seconds, right? So after a few more of these call-outs to Dr. Joseph, I finally hear this voice, I'm over here. And it was not the person I was on top of, and it was a voice that was coming from my right-hand side. And so I made the decision to shoot the person that I was on top of, and whether it killed him or subdued him enough, I was able to then jump off of that person, and I leapt across the room and was able to jump on Dr. Joseph, because shots are now flying throughout this room. And so I jumped on Dr. Joseph to protect him with my body armor. It just happened to be, by the grace of God, that one of the other Taliban was within arm's reach of me. And I was able to hold Dr. Joseph against me with body armor, and within arm's reach, I was able to reach over and pin that person against the wall by their throat. And fortunately, what that had done was just given enough time for the rest of the team to make it inside and eliminate that threat. And so once that threat was eliminated, we went through doing the standard protocol of, asking him if he was hurt, ask him if he could, walk, ask him if they had been booby trapped. He didn't know if they put a suicide vest on him or if there was a, grenade that was set up ready for the pin pulled. So we did with a coordination with our EOD, an explosives check on him, make sure he was okay, and then we started to move him. We moved Dr. Joseph outside. And as quickly as I just described what had happened in there, it was about how fast everything had happened. In just a matter of I would say a few short minutes, we went from entering in the building to killing five of the terrorists and rescuing Dr. Joseph. That operation is at the top of the echelon of most decorated special operations missions there is. What came out of that, Nick Check became a Navy Cross recipient, as well as 3 other people on that operation, along with multiple Bronze Stars and things of that nature. But as I talked about in the past, and how I view being a recipient at the end of the day, and I'm just a holder of this medal, and while it's for my personal actions, it is really, they would never have been able, I would have never been able to do what I've done if it wasn't for my entire team as a whole and how we operated. Nick was an absolute warrior, and he was fearless. And he showed that night in his immediate actions and his aggression to go save an American doctor.